Ah. Okay, all right. Probably should have got my camera set up before trying to do this, but let's fix that. And we got that one turned on.
Zack, we've got the CPC people up here to pick up their repair.
I'll be out in just a second. Be right back. Oh. Hey, how's it going?
How are you, man?
Not too bad.
Looking awesome, man. Hey, I got you this one here. Believe it or not, it's the same customer who tried to move the other one.
Oh
Different
boy.
But it's
Different
a different
system.
One. It's a different one.
Different system, but the same customer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully it's not very ruined, you know.
Yeah. I'll open it up and see. Worst case scenario, it'll be the same bad news as last time. See, for me, I like taking on these kind of repairs because I like, you know, it gets boring doing the same HDMI port 1,000 times a day. Like this, I actually get to, like, you know, test my skill and ability, but there's a certain point where it's like, it's not worth it to, because these systems are like, what do we sell them for, like $225, $250, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. I will say, if you're charging any less than $200 for HDMI port repair on this, you should be charging $200.
For real?
I charge $200, and I have no shortage of repairs at $200.
I went by your sheet.
Yeah, that is the prices that I have in my sheet. Those are the same prices I'm charging our customers.
And this one? Like
this one we charge $125. Yeah.
That's what I charge. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we charge $125 as long as it's just the port.
Right.
So when it gets into being more than that, like I'll usually do a couple traces if it's 1 or 2 traces, but if it
but I think this one is just, since it's
yeah,
still in
hopefully
place.
it's just the port.
Right.
Hopefully it's just the port, but we'll see. Oh well.
Tell me.
Memory expansion. I don't know if that matters or not, how much that person cares about it or uses that, but that is also not supposed to look like that on the inside. I can't tell whether or not that's going to affect anything, but
I see it right there.
that's just something that at least I don't have to tell you later than tell you right now.
Yeah, can you have it and hold repair till I call the customer?
Okay.
I'm gonna tell them about this.
The storage expansion slot is also damaged, and if they use it, then yeah, they would need it fixed. If they don't use it, then you know.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, you can keep it because if he says okay, then I'll give you.
Alrighty.
This.
Here, go ahead and put that into the queue still. This is gonna the repairs in there don't charge sales tax.
Okay.
He'll get it taken care of from here.
Thank you so
Have a
much.
good one. Probably didn't choose the right time to test out doing a repair stream. Giving away all my trade secrets. All right. Oh yeah, I didn't go live on Facebook. That's good at least. I gotta get the rest of these working.
Zack, with the repair that is coming in as well, am I just doing a standard bench fee on that, or is the tax different as well?
No bench fee on B2B repairs. I'll put somewhere to establish that moving forward. But yeah, Majid is B2B, so whenever he comes to drop in repairs, you don't need to do the checklist or the repair waiver form, and don't need to collect a bench fee, but you'll still put it in the spreadsheet as normal. Okay, where were we at? We were at fixing our overhead camera because I was too dumb to do this before starting the. All right, we got it plugged in. It's on manual focus, which shouldn't matter yet. Okay, number 4 is face cam. So we don't need to mess with face cam. Oh, there we go. All right. Overhead has been fixed. Microscope is good. Thermal camera, we don't really even need that one. All right. Good. My audio says it's good on my side. Let's hang out here for about an hour and a half. I figured since I cleaned up my repair area to some extent that I could test out doing a short repair stream. So you guys are gonna get me for an hour and a half. First repair in the queue that I'm working on is a Nintendo Switch with an obvious USB-C port failure. So we're gonna knock that out. Angelo, hi. Market Scraper, hello. So we're gonna start by just breaking into this device. Fortunately, these stickers aren't covering anything important. Normally I would do some pre-testing on this, but with the port damage, there's not a whole lot of good testing I can do. I'm assuming the battery probably died before they brought it in to where it wouldn't even power on if I wanted it to. Hopefully this ends up being a straightforward repair where it's just the USB-C port and nothing else. I wouldn't mind it being something crazy, as long as it's crazy with a reasonable end. But hopefully it's just a port. We can zoom in. I definitely need to. This is where I like to do work, right? Oh yeah, that's much better. All right. Okay. We're just unscrewing everything for now. And in this case, I don't know if there's any other issues, but at the very least, hi FOMO, hello. At the very least, that's a glaring enough issue. I don't know if I'd be able to show it to you guys reasonably, but we'll see it when we get under the microscope. It's a very obviously failed USB-C port, which is very common in these systems. One of the most common switch repairs that we see. What's this customer like to play? Mario Odyssey, that's a good pick. That's a good pick. Mario Odyssey was a breath of fresh air for me, getting tired with 2D side-scrolling Marios. I love Mario, but I've consistently been unable to get into the 2D Marios, and that's even including Wonder, where I didn't hold my attention for too long before I just gave up on it. Ooh, now I can really move this. Now this is, I don't know why I didn't do this earlier. I'm sure my camera's probably going to get in the way of the microscope, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. And for now, we're just tearing this apart. I would like to establish some form of habit doing repairs on stream at least once a week. Mostly just as a means of giving customers a chance to see that I have an idea of what I'm doing. More than anything else. It takes a lot of trust to let somebody work on your stuff, especially when they're charging you good money to do it, and hopefully these videos can be a testament to the quality of work that we do. I would like for that to be the case. Well, normally I would compartmentalize these screws, but at a certain point when you've done these so many times, you just put everything back by memory. We got all the screws out after this one, and now it's just going to be, get my favorite tweezers. Undoing all these connections. Backlight, LCD, power volume, and the fan connector. Well, this is they made two versions of the switch fan. One that has little rubber spacers in between the screws, or grommets, whatever you call them. And those spacers move around to where you can pop the motherboard out without removing the fan. And then there's this version, which is just plastic and does not let you move the fan to pop out the motherboard. So we're gonna move over to our microscope. Probably gonna have to do a little bit of fiddling to, ooh, the microscope should not have hide. Okay. We're gonna do some work under the microscope now. Might have to all right, there's the I don't know how well you guys can see it, but there is the port failure. It's extravagant port failure with multiple bent back pins. Bottom side looks good. Hopefully no broken traces or anything like that. Okay, now I need to, this is straight here, let's make it straight here. That's straight there. Alright, that's good enough. Well, now it's not good enough on my side. Okay, yeah, a little dark, but it looks good. So, see the port failure. I'm gonna pop this port off. Hopefully there will be no broken traces on the underside. Let's see if we can hang this off. I'm learning that there's never too many camera angles when it comes to trying to get the right angle to stream this stuff. Let's move this over. Normally I wouldn't do this part under the microscope just because you don't really need to, but okay, I need to come down. Yeah, that looks good enough. All right, so we're gonna pop this old port off. Could use some flux here, but don't really need to. Nope, I don't need my thermal camera going off on me. I mounted my thermal camera under my microscope, and it is much more convenient to use, but I also use a lot of heat, so it'll start yelling at me if I get it too hot. So I'm using 380 degrees Celsius. And I'm just waiting until this port moves with no effort whatsoever, and then we'll lift it up. There we go. All right, we're gonna lift it off. And we have our ports intact, or our pads, those. Pins intact definitely makes it a much easier repair. I'm going to drop down some flux here. Now I'm not going to tin these pads because I'm going to tin the pins on the new port. But I am going to put down some flux. You don't need a whole lot. I'm learning the hard way that more often than not, less is more with flux. And the bare minimum ends up doing the job just fine. All right, so we need to get a new port. I'm trying to start keeping all my common use stuff. So I got we can move this. I've got ports for commonly replaced devices really close to me now. Now we got our replacement port. Here's our new port. Let's see how it looks on the camera. Looks good. We're just gonna put down some flux. We don't need a whole lot of precision or anything, just enough to that should be fine on the outer pin line and on the inner pin line. And there we go. No bridges that I can see, and all the pins have been properly tinned. Right, come back out here to where the board's hanging off. Got our counterweight on. Got our new port. And just like with removal, we're going to drop this new port in place. One of my favorite things to see is solder liquefy. So we are going to reinforce those anchors with additional solder, but we're going to do that once the port is on. Starting to see the solder liquefy. Alright, we should be good to drop it in place. We don't want to leave the heat on too long because we'll start melting the connector. So we're gonna, while the port's still a little hot, we're gonna blow some solder on these legs. So now we have our new port on. We can't test the inside pin line for wiggles, but we can test the outside. So assuming the outside is all good, the inside should also be good. I'm just lightly nudging these pins to see if there's any movement indicating that the pins did not adhere to the solder correctly, but it looks like they did, at least from the outside. So all of our work with the port replacement is done, but we still have a little bit more to do just to make sure there's nothing else to do. And we're going to start by checking for shorts around this chip. This is M92T36. And that does not look good on camera. There we go, look at that. That looks much better. Let's see how it looks on my side. Terrible. Well, we could be closer up, but this will do the job. Right now, got my multimeter in diode mode, red probe on ground, black probe on these capacitors. That's not good. So our first capacitor that we test is testing short. So this is ground, and this is also measuring ground. So that capacitor shorted to ground. It's probably not the capacitor itself, and it's with this capacitor, it's probably not this chip. Well, now it is this chip. So usually this capacitor goes short when this chip is bad, and this capacitor goes short when this chip is bad. So I'm going to measure. Well, with this filter being good, that gives me something to be hopeful for. Hopefully we just have a bad M92. So I'm going to pop this M92 off and see if our shorts are relieved. Best case scenario, they are. Worst case scenario, I have to replace 2 chips. And just wait until solder melts, then it'll lift off without an issue. There we go. Okay. So we have the we have the IC removed. We're gonna measure for shorts again. This one should be gone. And it is. This one still there, which means we have to do both. That's unfortunate. I don't like doing PI3. So this is the USB controller IC, and when this goes bad, you don't get dock output, and in some cases you don't get power delivery either. And this is the case where you don't get power delivery. So we're gonna pull off this one as well. This capacitor should also measure short, but once we pull this IC off, we will see both capacitors no longer measuring short. And then at that point, it's just replace these two components, and we should be good. That's a best case scenario. I guess I should be happy because, you know, normally it's just a port replacement or a port and M92 replacement. And this time we have port M92 and PI3. But there is a worst case scenario here where if I measure this capacitor still short to ground, which I'm not, it is now, that's not good. It is measuring partially short to ground, which is not good. Yeah, partial short to ground on this capacitor after removing PI3 usually means that we have an APU failure. That's not good. That's not good at all for the customer. I mean, it's not good for me either because now we're only getting the bench fee out of this and nothing else, but that's not good. It's not good at all. Since it's not a full short, maybe it's salvageable. Maybe it's not as bad as I'm thinking that it is, but typically you're not supposed to have a short to ground after removing PI3 when that capacitor measures short. Yeah, I'm 068. Well, best we can do now is put on a new PI3 and hope nothing bad happens. Maybe I'm remembering incorrectly, but so we got a new PI3. We're gonna drop this in place. Now we're gonna use some flux. Now we got heat. This guy goes upside down. We get that little dot lining up with our direction indicator.
The old crutch.
Just gonna heat this up. Hopefully it will snap into place appropriately. If we still measure a partial short, I'll last ditch effort pull off that capacitor, see if that helps at all, but we might just be dealing with a no fix here. At a certain point, you kind of just have to throw your hands in the air. It would be really funny if the first repair on stream today is a no-fix. First repair after a hiatus and it's a no-fix. Okay. Looks like it's made good connection. We're gonna measure for short. Yeah, it's still 0.7, and I know with PI3 on, it's supposed to be higher than that. So we're measuring, we're still getting a partial short to ground. I can inject voltage here, but it's probably not going to be anything good coming from it. We'll do M92. Why not? We're already this far. Again, we don't need to tin these pads, but we will put down some flux just to facilitate adhesion. Get the orientation down. I need to move that mouse out of the way. Alright, we got M92 attached. Let's see if that short's any better. Probably not going to be though, honestly. Yep, it's still partial short to ground. That's sad. Nope. Thought I was measuring incorrectly, but we're still definitely partial short. Don't know if you guys can hear that beep, but that is the beep of failure. Tested these filters good already. Well, at this point, the only good thing we can do is inject some voltage and see if anything heats up. Which it's probably not, and I'm probably wasting my time at this point. But if I am, at least that I know that I am. I guess that's worth something. Would be a shame. Get our, we're going to attach to, well, I guess before I do that, I could, the capacitor does look a little ugly. Maybe we will get lucky and it is just a failing capacitor. I don't expect that to be the case though. Well, blew away, but I can still see it. All right, with that capacitor gone, are we in any better shape? No, we're not. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to do anything else here. I could inject voltage. But I don't expect it to do anything of value. This is just one of those situations where the worst case scenario has manifested. Well, I guess it's a little different for me because I'm still not, well, it's not a full short to ground, so there might be some value in trying to rectify this, but it's probably a losing game. The safer bet would be for me to just consider this a no-fix device and leave it at that. Because I know my diode load reading is supposed to be way different than it is. But I would like to fix this. We're just going to inject voltage. Why not? Worst that happens is we're no better off than we were before, which is the overwhelmingly likely scenario here. I hate seeing stuff like this because you don't see it very often. And when you do see it, it's, well, now I have to give the customer bad news, and I also don't get to make reasonable money off this repair. Because the $25 bench fee that we charge to look at stuff, I've lost the value out of that already with what I've done. The time that I'm spending on this is now wasted. Alright, we got that pad. Leg of the capacitor ready. Just gonna. Alright. We're ready to inject some voltage. Let's see what it draws. And it's not drawing anything. Yeah, we're not going to get a wire out of this. Just going to call it here. I'm going to partial reassemble, test, verify that all the work we did not fix this issue, and then finalize reassembly. Oh, not that one. There we go. So here's our old port. And that's just how things, especially, I'm less surprised to see this given how bad this port was damaged. Because when those pins start touching each other, especially when power is plugged into these ports after they fail, it kind of breeds this kind of situation. So it's not surprising to see it, but it's still unfortunate because there is it's a lose-lose situation. Customer has no reasonable path to repair on his system anymore, and I have no reasonable path to getting the customer's money. So I'm just going to assemble this far enough to plug up power and test it, but again, I have no expectation of this working. And basic testing is just the backlight I could test with a little power tester, but I like to test this way. So we got backlight, LCD, and battery. Now, if we plug in our system, this would normally give us a battery charging symbol there, but yep, that's all she wrote. How unfortunate. First repair of the night, and it's not even a repair, but that's unfortunately what happens. I would love to figure out a reasonable path to fixing this device, but there is no reasonable path to fixing this device. So we're just going to reassemble it and move on to the next repair. Hopefully the next repair is successful, at least, even if it's not fun. I'm okay with it not being fun as long as it's successful, because then I get paid. But this is a really good example of why we do charge a bench fee, because we have to get paid for our time even when the device decides that it is not going to be repairable. Because now I am, well, either I would be down my additional time, but I'm down a working M92 IC, I'm down a PI3 IC, and I'm down the time that I put into this system because there is no reasonable path for repair. So I can't charge the customer for a device that does not work, and that pretty much just makes it to where this is the gamble. That's the gamble portion. I gamble my time. Customer gambles $25. I think it's a pretty reasonable setup. It could be worse. And that's kind of how I pose it to customers, especially when it's like a repair where there's in the scope of possible outcomes, no repair is one of them, mostly with liquid damage. So $25 is a pretty low barrier to seeing if your device is fixable or not. In this case, the customer paid $25 for me to tell them that there is no reasonable path to repair on this device. Hopefully the next customer won't be getting the same bad news. I still go through the motions with preparing or reassembling the device back to original condition, and that means replacing the thermal interface even on a device that's not going to work. But that's what we do. Whoops. I know some places, and it's not necessarily unreasonable to do so, once you deem a system not fixable, they sometimes won't even reassemble the device and will charge the customer if they do not want to just forfeit it. And that's not, I wouldn't say that's necessarily a bad thing to do, but as long as the expectation is set up front. I don't really set an expectation. I give the customer the option to sell the device for parts, but the price that we give out for systems like this that are broken especially like I wouldn't even really be able to sell or reassemble this with a working, oh, never mind, that screen actually is good. I thought that was a big scratch, but it's just a mark. So there is still some value in this device in the sense that the screen is still good, the shell is still good, the rails and all that are still good. So, you know, but we are also inundated with extra consoles. Extra broken consoles to where there's just no reason to pay out a whole lot on these when they're not working. Hopefully, I'm thinking Thursday's probably the day. Now, there was for a while where I had no expectation to be able to jump back into repairs anytime soon, but I was spreading myself out across all the parts of the store trying to get caught up on stuff. But now I wouldn't say reasonably caught up. I still have an entire side of the store to build shelves for, but custom repairs take some precedence. So this stuff has to happen one way or the other, and fortunately the barrier for streaming is very low. Otherwise I probably wouldn't do it. I've got my system set up to where it's just a couple of button presses and I'm live. So my process isn't slowed down very much. I might spend a little more time going over something, but otherwise I'm able to maintain a similar effective pace than if I'm not streaming, and I think if that shows you guys that I at least look like I know what I'm doing, that's enough for me. Since we're 0% on successful repairs today, I'm not doing a very good job at that, but hopefully the remainder of our repairs will make it a little different. All right, we got our all our screws, but the 4 tri-wing, and then this device actually has to go back to our other location before the customer can be contacted. It's especially important in this case because they still have a game that they'll need to get. So and they have their Joy-Cons here with it. All right, customer device, repair or lack thereof complete, and we can move on to the next system. Repair or lack thereof. A big ol' or lack thereof in this case. All right, let me update my notes real quick. No fix APU damage. So this has been established by multiple repair sources when there is a short to ground on the, I guess you would call it the main capacitor that's up next to PI3. When that capacitor is short to ground even after pulling PI3, that's typically an indication of APU failure. that is what we're working off of, and that is what we will tell the customer when they come to pick up their device. But at least for now, it's going to head back to our other store where they'll be contacted and given their options at that point. But for now, we can move on to the next repair. And the next repair is a PS5 Slim that does not turn on. Oh, this is going to be fun too. PS5 Slims are relatively new still, but we have added to our arsenal good software for troubleshooting no power issues. Maybe we will be very lucky in this case, and it is a verified power supply issue. But the downside to that is going to be that the power supplies are not in stock, and we can't sell something. Okay, no sticker on it. Good for me. We can't fix it if there's not a power supply to fix it. Hopefully they are available on the market for us to purchase, and that price gets factored into the repair price. We charge a flat rate for no power, and that rate is independent of whether it was a power supply that fixed the issue or a failed capacitor, a failed component otherwise. Let's see, can we zoom out? Ooh, yeah, we can zoom out. All right, let's see if we can. Here's our PS5 in all of its glory. Looks very clean. So we've got two scenarios here, a better scenario and a worse scenario. Better scenario is try to power this on and we get no beep. And we get no beep. So that's leaning me even further into believing that this is a power supply issue. So we are gonna test that to see if that's the case. Once we are able to verify that it's a power supply issue, since we do not have stock of power supplies, we will have to, and I'm sure these are available on the market at this point. I bought some, I always forget how to, oh yeah, it's from the back. Is it? Maybe it's not. How do you open this darn thing? There we go. Okay, so it is from the front, but I didn't damage anything. That's all that matters. This is the PS5 Slim, so the disk drive just pops out. And we just need to get far enough to measure no 12 volts on the 12-volt rail whenever we plug the power supply in. If it measures short to ground, it could be a short on the power supply. It could be a short on the motherboard itself. That would actually be a better case scenario because it's typically pretty straightforward to find a 12-volt short to ground. That would be very fortunate. Because then we could probably fix it without having to order parts. And that would mean getting it back to the customer even faster. I'm actually in a really good spot with our queue right now. I was almost right at around 2 weeks behind, but now I'm a couple days behind, and that's typically like how I like to keep it. I have some B2B repairs that were supposed to be mailed here a week ago now, and USPS seems to have overwhelmingly dropped the ball on getting that here in time. So we've got a case open for We got a case open for a missing package in the UPS system. Oh, we gotta get this one still. It's actually in Louisville, but it stopped updating a week ago and it's never attempted to deliver. Now the downside to this is that we still have to disassemble the entire system. I'm gonna move this over here. Normally I would do disassembly in my disassembly area, but I don't have my what do you call it, my camera set up over there yet. I do, but I don't have the HDMI RAN and all that stuff, and I'm maybe next week, but today we are just doing a couple repairs, so I figured I wouldn't go all in on getting all this stuff set up. Now we can take off these million screws. PS5 has a lot of screws. Well, all generation PlayStation 5 has a lot of screws. I'm not necessarily upset about it, but it is definitely the case. Lots of screws. I would say the disk drive being detachable by itself is super cool. And I'm looking forward to other companies following suit with that. I don't know how Nintendo would do it because they already kind of... I don't know if they have a good setup for it because eShop sucks, but they do have a setup for it. And cartridges, I guess cartridges are even more expensive to manufacture than discs are. I at least would assume that they would be, so maybe Nintendo has the most to gain by doing something like that. But they were also very weird about their physical only release of Thousand Year Door Remake, which kind of makes it seem like they're doing otherwise, or not trying to move into that direction, which I guess isn't. It's fine for me. Better for me even, because I need physical copies of games in order to sell. I got all these removed. Oh, one hiding back here. Now we're good. Oh my gosh, how did I miss two? Alright, there, now we're good. So now we have access to our power supply. Actually, if I remember correctly, we can... No, PS5 sum's different. But we're going to measure 12 volts for short to ground. And it is short to ground. We got ground, and then this is 12 volts. Alright, well, what is it doing? It was doing it, now it's not. Well, let's measure for 12 volts on the 12 volt rail when it's plugged in. Usually if 12 volts is present, it'll give you beep on, beep off when you switch over to DC voltage, and we've got nothing. We're plugged in, but we've got no power, no 12 volts on the 12 volt rail, leading me to believe that this is more than likely a power supply issue. Now, did they make it easier in this regard? I haven't had to get into the power supply side for PS5 yet. Let's take this off. Actually, it seems like they have. I probably didn't have to. I could have done less work, actually. And, there we go. Could have done less work in this regard, where I just dropped these two screws. Oh, I think this is the power supply. Yeah, I definitely don't have one of these. All right, so there is the power supply. We're gonna pop it out. The other screw. There's the power supply screw. Let's get this out of the way. Nothing attaching to it. Nope, we should be able to just lift it off. And now, let's measure for short to ground. And we do not have a short to ground on 12 volt rail, just like we wanted to see. So that does make this a power supply issue. Now we could go into trying to solve why this power supply failed. I've never actually been into one of these before, but we've got our spade connector slots, and we're gonna it's still got some leftover power. We're gonna plug up 12 volts and see if we get 12 volts. We're probably not gonna get it, but oh no, we do have it. We have 12 volts. Yeah, right there. 12 volts. That's not good. Well, I guess it is good in the sense that we don't have a power supply issue to worry about, but we have no power on, or no short to ground on the 12 volt rail. So it's going to make it a little more difficult to troubleshoot where our issue actually is. Again, no short to ground here. Well, actually, it should be this way. Yeah, it's doing what it's supposed to do. So, we're gonna have to go in. Before we could do anything, now this customer did say that this happened as a result of a it powered off during a lightning storm, so it could be as simple as a bad fuse. So we're going to test all the easy to see fuses. F7002, F7001. Where is okay, I don't think 3503 is actually populated. 3501 is 3503 populated. I don't believe so. All right. F5401. F7005. Well, so there's this console service tool that was made for the PS5. There's actually a whole lot of, well, a whole lot of drama around that, but none of that matters in this case. The free version of the console repair tool is really good in helping you troubleshoot no power issues, but it's less useful when you have dead no power, which is what this is. So there is no beep or anything, alluding us to it not being a large power or a large power failure. All right, F3502 is being weird. Let's look at it under the microscope. And that little O, you can see right there. Yeah. Oh no, there we go. Just need to measure on the top. And we're good. Got excited for a second. And this is I'll look around, see if there's anything obvious. Now, one thing that could have happened depending on what caused the problem initially, sometimes no power can be caused by a surge of power through the HDMI port. So we're gonna see if there's anything going on around this. These are the data lines for HDMI. Now we can look for Southbridge. We check that fuse. I got an idea. Let's try something out. I've got my special connector tool that lets me Okay, so red goes up. We are gonna plug this up like it is plugged up in the system normally. We got go back to this one. Now, I wonder if this works, because these I know are for different model systems, but we still might be able to use them. Nope, they don't have the power button board on a different board. They have it all integrated into the single connector, which I remember seeing that now. There's only this connector. Maybe I can short it to ground to try to get it to boot. I'm going to short the power button pin to ground to try to get it to boot. Let's see. What we are going to try, too, is if thermals give us any indication of what's going on. So we were able to measure 12 volts on, output on the power supply, and that should translate to 12 volts here. And it does. Okay, so we are getting 12 volts on the... What's going on here then? Because we're getting 12 volts. Let's see if we got 5 volts. Should have 5 volts on pin 18. Where's a good source for 5 volts? Still have 12 volts. Yep, steady 12 volts. There was a large capacitor on older revisions that I could measure 5 volts from. That does not seem to exist on this motherboard. There's 3.3, 1.8. No, look at that. How convenient. There's 3.3 again. 1.8, 3.3, 3.3, 1.8. There's 5 volts. Okay, now we have a bunch of rails with voltage present. I don't like this. We got 12 volts present. We got 5 volts present. We got 3.3 and we got 1.8. And it wouldn't boot on. So what's going on here? Did I fix it by doing nothing? That would be unfortunate. So let's just do that. Let's partial reassemble and see if we get the same cruel reality. Gonna need to respread the thermal interface. All right, that side's good. Let's get it over here. That side's also good. So the good thing about this is we really don't have to assemble this very far to where we can test for boot. But it's very hard for me to try to troubleshoot a no power issue when looks like all of our important voltage rails are all present. Maybe it's a power button issue, but I don't think that's the case. All right, now we can, darn it, my one screw. All right, we got the 2 power supply screws there. We're gonna take this front panel, unwire the antenna, and now we have our power button accessible. So ideally, if we plug this in, flip it around. We don't really have to be too gentle at this point because motherboard is secured with the heatsink screws. Okay, that's how it goes. We have the power supply attached. Angle it this way so that we have easy access to the power connector. And now we have our power button attached. Let's give it some power input. And of course it's dead no power. So now I'm leaning back into this being a power supply issue. Because we have no voltage and there's a way to test this. I know what we can do here. We're gonna leave all this stuff together. I have a good power supply. It's not the same model, but it's a good power supply. Whoops. And even though it's not the same model, as long as it's giving us 12 volts, we should be able to use it. Well, actually, let's get it set up first. Unplug this for now. So it could be failing when it attempts to, well, we might not even have to. No, I don't remember which side is positive on these. Darn it. The inside is positive. Inside is positive. Inside is positive, so it should. Now let's try this. That's connected enough. I heard the power supply kick on. Measure 12 volts. Okay, we have 12 volts. Let's plug up our power button. Maybe it's the power button board. That is also a possibility here. Okay, so we have, let's again measure 12 volts. We still have 12 volts. And we have no power. Okay, well. Something is definitely up here. Maybe at this point, we could actually use the console service tool, or the PS5 service tool thingy. Because I'm not seeing what I want to see here. So we can reasonably assume that it's not the power supply. And we have voltage present, but we're not getting boot. Let's try to figure out why. So we've got these test points right here. Please don't be a south bridge, because if it's a south bridge, then it's a no fix. Where is my... Oh, it's right here. All right. We've got my very long cable for... Will also be a demo of the console service tool. Monitor. All right, console service tool. We need to look at UART test point references. And we are dealing with EDM04X. So this should be the setup that we need to replicate. We're going to move back over here. Well, let's do it under the microscope. That way you guys can see up close. All right. You got right here, and then, whoa, right here. We got right here. So TX, RX, and ground. So green needs to go to RX, and black needs to go to ground. We're going to tin these pads with some leaded solder. It's 1, 2, 3. So 1, 2, 3. And then let's flow in some leaded solder. All right, nice chunky pads to connect to now. TX is going to be red. So red, green, black, left to right. Do this with my offhand. Red. Let's clean that up a little bit. That's better. Red. My thermal camera is yelling at me again. Green. And then ground. It's not pretty, but it's going to do the job. So we are going to plug this up. Now I always get RX and TX mixed up. If it doesn't work, then we just swap those and that should fix the issue. Alright, it detects it, but it does not have power, so we're gonna plug up power. Let's go over here, and we need to close this out. We can full screen this, USB COM4, run. It's not doing anything. Okay, let's I'm going to swap RX and TX and try again, and then we're run them. I'm not going to do that on camera. There's our... Okay, got it swapped. Plug power back in. And now, still nothing. Oops. Please connect your PS5 to UART. Do not power up the console. That is... Well, it's not going to work if it's too bad of a failure, and that might be the case here. Or if it's... because it has to be able to talk to the south bridge. That's what it's trying to do here. And if it can't talk to the south bridge, then there's nothing going to happen. But with us having 5 volts, makes me think that we don't have an issue with south bridge. But I could be wrong. Probably am wrong actually at this point. Let's swap these one more time on the off chance that it was right the first time. I have seen an amount of PS5 Slims where they come in for beep on, beep off, which is just another form of no power, and plug it up to this and it says graphics RAM failure. And at that point, there's no reasonable repair for graphics RAM failure, so we just call it a no fix and move on with life. It's unfortunate, but that's electronics repair. In this case, we might even be 2 for 2 on no fixes on stream. That's not good. This is typically COM4, and it's not getting, I'm not even able to read it, and I'm pretty sure, like, at this point I'm confident that we have it plugged up correctly and everything. So for it to continue to not work, I can verify that we have 12 volts. And we do have 12 volts. So we've got 12 volts and we have UART plugged up and it does not detect the system. We have other standby voltages. We got our 1.8, 3.3, 5 volts. $12 volts. I hate this. Only other thing we can do at this point is the old thermal camera. Let's see if thermals tell us anything. But with all of our voltage rails present, it is very unlikely that we're going to see any kind of problem, which just makes this all the more difficult. Yeah, all that lighting up so far is just reflection. Well, a system like this is very hard to troubleshoot when you have voltage rails present and nothing showing up on UART. It could indicate a south bridge failure. That is I'm kind of leaning into that more now. The only thing that sucks about that is there is no reasonable path to repair for that because I'm assuming that those do not exist on the market yet. Unless I have a parts board chilling in the back that I'm not aware of. And that might be the case. Actually, I do have a couple of part systems that were graphics RAM failure, but I don't believe these use the same south bridges. And that means I don't have stencils. That means that even for an experimental repair like replacing the south bridge, there is a lot of possibility for CXD 9069. Yeah, I don't believe that's the one that we have. All right, let's go back to microscope. UART will not work when it can't talk to Southbridge. And lightning storm blowing out Southbridge is a scenario. That is something that could happen. You just have to probe around and find out. All right. Yeah, an electrical storm or power outage caused by lightning or thunder. Wait a minute. Yep, we found it. Big capacitor under Southbridge, short to ground. It's a partial short. No, I'd say that's close enough. So this tells me, I think, enough that this is more than likely a south bridge failure, which lines up perfectly with the symptoms that we're seeing where it doesn't connect to UART. We have voltage rails present, but we have no boot. So because everything goes through the south bridge, essentially. Everything that we're doing goes through the south bridge. And when we can't get the system to power on, you can't get detection through UART, but you have voltage rails present. It's, yep, south bridge. That's not good. That is not good at all. First thing, see, I don't even know if I bought some stencils a long time ago. Actually, I can find out. We can find this out. Because if this is fixable with a south bridge, then I could actually do that. This would technically put it in the realm of being a more expensive repair than standard. Okay, the 61, yeah, 61 GG is the stencil that I have. So first, I'm going to assume that there are no replacement south bridges for this model of system are available. We can find that out. Let's find that out. CXD 9000 69 GG. Okay, all right. Oh, this is yeah. That's the wrong revision anyways. This is out of country. So we could buy one out of country for $40. But this reasonably tells me that there are no, 61 is for the previous generation. Console Fix Store, that's here and it's out of stock. Let's do some shopping. I guess we can put this in quotes. No, it has to be that. Yep, AliExpress. Oh, is it the same stencil? Hmm. I don't think it's the same stencil. I bet we'd have to order a different stencil. No, it says 61 and 69. That's telling me something. It's giving me something to think about, because I do have systems that I know Southbridge work on, but there are other problems with, and this would be a, if the Southbridge does work, I'm just hesitant to pull off the customer Southbridge. Well, it's 7 o'clock. So we looked at two things. One was switch with short to ground on the main capacitor that PI3 and PI3, M92, and the APU all talked to, and that capacitor was short to ground after removing M92, PI3, which historically leads to a failed APU. So that's a no fix. And then this one, actually I feel like we could probably do Southbridge on it, and there's going to be a path to repair on this one. Southbridge repair is typically more expensive than our standard no power repair because we have a a BGA repair to do at that point, and we charge more for BGA repairs than standard repairs. So tomorrow, actually maybe not even tomorrow, when I decide to get back into repairs, I'm going to contact the customer, give them their options, say, you know, hey, if you want to spend an additional $50, then we can look at replacing the south bridge, and assuming that works, then you'll just owe $50 more than you did before. Kind of let the customer decide what they want to do there, because it's still cheaper to do that than it is to buy a replacement system. So that might be the play for them. I'm not sure if they looked at reaching out to Sony in the spectrum of options available to them, but that might be a reasonable option too. I am actually fairly confident that it will be a south bridge that fixes this issue, and I don't know if I want to wait a week to do this repair on live stream again. So if I decide to work on it again, I might do a live stream to at least give this a chance to be seen from start to finish, one way or the other, and then hopefully we have some good results from a new south bridge if the customer decides to do it. If not, to completely understand. Otherwise, I'm hungry, so I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna eat, and maybe I'll stream this repair. Otherwise, I did just get my my Ragavan in the mail, my fancy Ragavan for my Gorilla deck. I'm gonna go put that in when I get home. So that's it. Yeah, you guys got to watch me not fix two devices, one of which might have a path, but the other one's definitely a no-go. So we will we'll try again in the next one, and I'll see you guys around.